Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive? Today, we're tackling a pretty intense chapter in the Israelites' journey, that moment when they reach the edge of the Promised Land.
It's like the culmination of everything, 400 years of slavery, the Exodus, the wilderness wanderings, and now, finally, they are at the border of Canaan.
But as we'll see, it's not exactly smooth sailing from here, is it?
Oh, not at all. In fact, this is where things get really interesting. We see a clash between faith and fear, doubt, and possibility. It's a story that, honestly, I think still speaks to us today.
Absolutely. And we've got some fascinating sources to guide us on this deep dive, a Bible study lesson that really delves into the emotional and spiritual side of the story, and then this scholarly article that sheds light on the historical and cultural context.
It's a great combination. By weaving these two perspectives together, we can gain a much richer understanding of what was happening at Kadesh-Barnea.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The Israelites, after all they've been through, they arrive at this place, Kadesh-Barnea. What can you tell us about this location? What's the significance?
Well, first and foremost, it's right on the threshold of Canaan, the land that God promised to Abraham centuries earlier. So for the Israelites, this is a hugely symbolic moment.
Like a dream about to be realized.
Exactly. But, before they just march in, they decide to send in a reconnaissance team, a group of 12 spies, one from each tribe.
To scope things out, right?
Precisely. They want to get the lay of the land, see what they're up against. And this wasn't unusual. Sending spies was pretty common practice in the ancient world, especially before a military campaign.
It makes sense. You want to know what you're walking into.
Right. You don't want to go in blind.
So what do the spies find when they get to Canaan? What's their report?
Well, they find a land that's exactly as described in the promise, a land flowing with milk and honey. They come back with stories of incredible abundance. Think of it. Fertile fields, orchards bursting with fruit. They even bring back samples.
Like show and tell. What kind of samples are we talking about?
Oh, I think you've probably heard this one before, but imagine grapes so big that it takes 2 men to carry a single cluster.
Wow. Okay, that's impressive. So everyone's thrilled, right? Time to celebrate.
Oh, not exactly.
There's a but.
Yeah. You see, 10 of the 12 spies come back absolutely terrified.
Wait, what? Why? I mean, milk, honey, giant grapes? Sounds pretty good to me.
I know, right? But they're totally fixated on the obstacles. They talk about the cities, heavily fortified, and the people living there, powerful warriors. And then they mention the Anakim.
The Anakim, who are they?
Descendants of giants, so basically giants themselves.
Okay, yeah, I can see why that might give you pause.
Right, giants. You can't just ignore that detail. So you have this stark contrast. On the one hand, evidence of incredible abundance, and on the other, this overwhelming fear.
So it's like they saw the same land, but through completely different lenses. 10 of the spies focused on the what-ifs, the potential dangers, the giants.
Yeah, it really highlights how fear can distort our perception, how it can blind us to the possibilities.
But we said that 2 of the spies had a different take, right? Caleb and Joshua.
Yes, Caleb and Joshua. They see the same land, the same challenges, but they urge the people to trust in God. They remind everyone that God delivered them from Egypt, parted the Red Sea. Surely he can handle a few giants.
So their faith was rooted in their experience. They had seen God's power firsthand.
Exactly. And that made all the difference in how they responded to this situation. It's a powerful example of how faith can empower us to face even the most daunting obstacles.
So we have these 2 conflicting reports. How does the rest of the community react to this news?
Not well. In fact, they completely fall apart. Weeping, complaining, wishing they were back in Egypt. Imagine that. Wishing you were back in slavery.
Talk about an overreaction.
It's wild, isn't it?
I guess it goes to show you just how powerful fear can be. It can make us long for even the worst of situations, if they feel familiar, if they feel safe.
Absolutely. Fear often drives us toward what's comfortable, even if it's ultimately harmful. It takes courage to step into the unknown, to embrace the possibilities, even when we're afraid.
So the Israelites are freaking out, wishing for Egypt, doubting God's promise. What's God's reaction to all of this?
Well, as you might imagine, he's not exactly thrilled, but his response is fascinating. It's a blend of justice and mercy, consequences and hope. He decrees that the generation, the one that doubted him, they won't enter the promised land.
Oh, well.
But there is hope. Their children, they will inherit it.
Oh, okay. So there's a second chance built in, but it comes at a cost.
Yeah, big one. 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. That's a pretty long consequence.
40 years. Yeah, that's a generation, essentially.
It's not just about, delayed gratification, though, is it? There's a much deeper meaning here.
Right, like a spiritual lesson about the repercussions of doubt.
Exactly. It shows how our choices have this ripple effect, how they can shape the destiny, not only for ourselves, but also for future generations.
It's a sobering thought, isn't it? The Israelites' lack of faith actually ended up defining the future for their kids.
It really makes you think about your own choices and the kind of legacy you're leaving behind.
For sure. And it's not just future generations. Our sources point out that even Moses, despite his unwavering faithfulness, he gets caught in the crossfire of the people's rebellion.
Oh, absolutely. Even he was impacted. His entry into the Promised Land was also delayed.
Really? Even Moses, I never knew that.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking when you think about it.
It's a reminder, I guess, that even the most faithful among us can be affected by the choices of others.
It speaks to the interconnectedness of it all, doesn't it? That we're all part of this web, this community, and our actions, well, they have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for those around us.
And that brings us back to Kadesh-Barnea itself. I mean, it wasn't just some random spot in the desert, right?
Oh, no, not at all. Kadesh-Barnea was strategically important. It was an oasis in that whole region, a vital source of water. Crossroads, really.
So it wasn't just a physical crossroads, but a metaphorical one as well.
Yeah, you could say that. They had the wilderness, this symbol of their past struggles behind them in the Promised Land, this, unknown future before them.
And they had to choose a path, essentially.
Exactly. It was a liminal space, that's what we call it, a threshold between the known and the unknown. And at this threshold, that's where they faced their biggest test.
A test of faith.
A test of courage.
Their whole future hung in the balance.
And it all came down to their perspective, how they chose to see the situation.
Well, that's something I think a lot of us can relate to, isn't it? We all face those moments where we have to make big choices, those thresholds in our own lives.
All the time. It's part of the human experience.
But how do we navigate those moments with wisdom and courage? I mean, the spies, they all saw the same land, but they interpreted it so differently.
You hit the nail on the head. It all boils down to how we frame things, don't you think? Do you focus on the giants or do you see the potential? The grapes, as you said earlier.
Do you see the challenges of the possibility?
Exactly. And remember, Caleb and Joshua, they chose to focus on God's power, on his promises. They had this radical faith, this belief that with God, all things were possible.
The other spies, though, they got swept up in fear.
Yeah, fear really clouded their judgment, and they missed out on this incredible miracle that was unfolding right before their very eyes.
So how do we cultivate that kind of radical faith, that
Yeah.
ability to see those possibilities, even when we're surrounded by giants?
It's a tough question, isn't it? It's something we probably wrestle with our whole lives. But I do think it starts with recognizing our own tendencies. I mean, we all have those tendencies towards fear and doubt, right?
Yeah, for sure.
We can't just pretend they don't exist. But the key, I think, is to not let them control us.
To not let them become the defining narrative.
Right. To actively choose to ground ourselves in something bigger, something that can sustain us when the going gets tough.
For the Israelites, that something bigger was their covenant with God,
Yeah.
his promises,
Yeah.
his faithfulness. But what about for those of us who, might not have that same framework?
That's a really good point. Yeah. I think the principle still applies, even outside of a specific religious context, It's about finding those anchors in our own lives, whatever they might be.
Things we hold on to.
Right. Our values, maybe our commitments to a cause, or even just a belief in something greater than ourselves. I think those are the things that can really sustain us when things get tough.
So it's like when we're facing our own giants, those challenges that seem insurmountable, it's about tapping into those deeper sources of strength and hope.
Exactly. And it's easy to forget sometimes, but the Israelites' story, it's not just some ancient tale. It's a reflection of the human condition, this ongoing battle between faith and fear that we all experience.
It's good to remember that we're not alone in that struggle. And actually, their story also offers a glimmer of hope, because even in their rebellion, even when they messed up so badly, God's mercy, it still prevailed.
Yeah, he didn't give up on them, did he?
He didn't. And that's a pretty powerful message, isn't it? It's like this testament to the idea that even our mistakes, even our failures, they can be redeemed. It's never too late to change course, to choose faith over fear.
Never too late. That's a good word.
It is reassuring, especially when we think about the impact we have on others, on future generations. It's like, what kind of world are we shaping with our choices? Are we passing on, faith and courage, or are we passing on fear and doubt?
Hmm. Makes you think, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And I think that's a great place to maybe end our deep dive today. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
I want to leave our listeners with this question to ponder. If you were standing with the Israelites at Kadesh-Barnea, knowing what we know now, knowing how the story unfolds, would you have chosen faith or fear? And how do you think that choice would have shaped your journey, your life?
Oh, that's a powerful question. Really gets to the heart of it.
The Israelite story, it reminds us that faith, it's not about the absence of doubt. It's about choosing to trust, even when we don't have all the answers.
And having the courage to step into the unknown, even when fear is trying to hold us back.
Well said. Well, this deep dive, it has given us a lot to think about, that's for sure. I really appreciate you joining us today.
The pleasure was mine. Always enjoy these deep dives.
Me too. And to all our listeners out there, thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.